Hi, everybody. Mitch Tanenbaum here. Thanks for joining me today. This is the security news update for November 13th, 2022. Um, in the security and alerts department, this is a little bit scary. Swiss Re, who is one of the big reinsurance providers, people that insure insurance companies, is saying that there's kind of a bit of a problem in the industry. Um, they think that there is, about $10 billion in premiums last year. They expect that to raise to about 23 billion by 2025, but the losses reached about 945 billion. That's a problem. The good news is that 90% of that is uninsured. That's good news for them, not good news for the people who are not insured. But the numbers just don't work. We have certainly seen some insurance companies get out of the business. Um, Forrester says that the typical breach costs about $2.5 million, but that less than 20% of the people who have insurance have more than $600,000 in coverage. Um, Swiss Re has made some recommendations about basically government bailouts. I don't know whether that's a high risk fund or what, but the market is getting dicey given the amount of payouts that they're making. In an interesting 114-page white paper, Microsoft documented how China is breaking their non-disclosure agreement, which requires that China goes off and reports things that they find in terms of bugs and vulnerabilities to Microsoft. Under Chinese law, they have to report it to the Chinese government first, and the Chinese government may not let them go off and report it to Microsoft. The Chinese government assured Homeland Security that they weren't doing that. Yeah, right. We believe them. Um, if interesting report in 114 pages of explaining how China is cheating, shall we say? Um, on the good news side, we have an interesting development, which is about time. Microsoft has released certificate-based multi-factor authentication for Azure. The certificate-based is by far way more secure than the forms we're using now, which are text messages and phone calls and stuff like that. They are testing this on the federal government, which is probably good. Let somebody else be the guinea pig besides industry. But I would definitely watch this carefully because if they roll this out, and then they will, when they roll this out to private industry, there will be pain, I promise, in terms of deploying it. Although I'm sure they'll deploy it through Intune, but nonetheless, this could be a real winner in terms of reducing multi-factor fatigue, which we're seeing now. Under important issues, Texas passed a law a couple of years ago that requires school districts to send home DNA kits for parents' kids. Now, the good news is, from a privacy standpoint, they told the parents to keep the DNA kits. So, we're not talking about giving everybody's DNA to the state. I think that's a plus. But somehow they're billing this as improving school security, which it doesn't do that at all. And I think it sends a pretty bad message home to parents and kids. So, Apple patched 2 more 0 days in iOS, and they're urging iOS and macOS users to patch the flaws. One is in the kernel, the other is in WebKit. They allow actors to take over devices, and they are under active attack. Now, these will automatically get pushed to you, but it could take a month or so to actually get out. If you think you're in a high risk group, I would definitely, force the issue and download the patch. Under the legal domain, the IRS seized another Silk Road hackers' Bitcoins. This was in a plea deal, so this is not like they're playing Dick Tracy and figured out how to break crypto. The hacker gave them 50,000 Bitcoin, which is about 3 billion plus. Actually, depending on the value of Bitcoin for a given day, but somewhere's around that. He also turned over $600,000 in cash and some other stuff. So that's a nice thing for the federal treasury to get a little present there. Um, in the breaches department, we didn't see a lot of bad news uh, during the election. What that says is that Homeland Security, which has been really actively working with the election officials, has been doing a good job at improving the security or helping the secretaries of state improve their own security. And so, it did knock the Mississippi Secretary of State website offline, but that really isn't involved in vote tabulation. So, we really did not hear much at all about cyber-related issues in the election. Um, I'm sure there's going to be some stuff, but it's pretty minimal, I think. Um, and I keep saying this, as we move to a service-based economy where we're outsourcing everything, the vendors are a real challenge for everybody, right? So here's a case of a New York-based anesthesiology practice that does administration, which I assume means billing and scheduling. It was hacked. It caused at least dozens of anesthesiology practices across the country to report breaches to their clients. Over 400,000 patients were affected. The company is physician owned, which means that these anesthesiologists not only have to report breaches to their patients and deal with that, but in addition to that, they have to pay to fix the problem. And for the practices that were their customers that they don't own, they are liable for that as well. So it's really a pretty nasty thing. But what we're talking about here, one more time, is vendor-based breaches, and you know, companies need to get their arms around that because it's a real problem. Um, Also in breaches, the Canadian food giant Sobeys got hit by ransomware. Now they're trying to spin everything as normal, but that's not what the employees say. They operate in Canada under a variety of names: Sobeys, Safeway, IGA, Foodland, and others. They have over 100,000 employees, so they're a big operation. Um, they did admit that some functions are not available and others are operating intermittently. Employees are saying that everything is locked out. One good piece of news is apparently that someone read the recommendations and put their point of sale system on a different network, so their point of sale system is working, and that's the only reason the stores are still open, of course. In the daily news, New York's governor has a bill on her desk to give residents a right to repair for most digital things. It's been sitting on her desk for months. She was up for re-election. Remember, she became governor after the previous governor resigned in disgrace. She was reelected, so whether she'll make a decision, I'm guessing, I don't know, that she thought maybe this was a little bit of a political hot potato and she'd wait till after the election to see which group of people she was going to tick off. But if she does sign it, it will be one of the more aggressive right to repair laws in the state, in the nation, which would be a good thing for consumers. And right after the European Union deployed more digital rights requirements, they just unveiled the Digital Services Act. This is different than the Digital Rights Act, and it's designed to rein in big providers, but it will affect lots of other people besides big providers. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens with this. We're also seeing with current European Union laws that there are trolls who just go off and write letters and fill out forms and try to get people to pay as a way of making them go away. Whether or not that works in this case or not is not clear, but doing business in Europe is becoming a little bit more dicey. And if you don't intentionally do business in Europe, we have some suggestions in terms of what you can do to reduce your risk. Reach out to us. Cyber insurance is not getting any better. It's, in fact, if anything, it's getting worse. The insurance companies are looking at their balance sheets and saying, this is really horrible in the aggregate, right, from a mass attack. So they are changing the rules, both of what it takes to get a policy and what it takes to keep a policy, and they are watching your network. So if you think that they're not, you're probably fooling yourself. And they may just come back next year and say, we looked at you, we looked at your whatever it is they chose to look at, say your patch cadence or whatever, and they're saying not so good. And finally, under the security news bites, AstraZeneca learns about cloud security the hard way. I mean, you think these big companies would figure out about cloud security, but they just keep screwing up. And now the good news is when they found out about it, when someone told them about what was going on, they did, in fact, block it. But in the meantime, the data is already out there. And in light of Twitter's chaos, Mastodon now has over 1 million users, which is that still makes it tiny by compared to Twitter. But all these things are not good for Twitter's valuation. It seems like Twitter's users are reluctant to pay for the check mark. There's an awful lot of fraud. They keep kind of trying to re-angle this thing to see if they can rein in the fraud. So far, it's not working. And we're seeing people pretending to be all kinds of people, all kinds of companies. So it's really not working. It's not well thought out, and it's going to take a while for them to sort that out. Whether or not the Twitter user community, which seems to be pretty addicted to Twitter, is going to tolerate that or move on or use the system less or whatever. Not clear, but none of that's good for Twitter. And finally, a Texas hospital chain who got hit by a ransomware attack, who did the spin thing and said, "Oh yeah, it's not affecting operations and it's not affecting patient data," had to come back and say, "Oops, we lied about that. It really is affecting patient data." So I'm sure that they'll be getting a visit from the feds because it's a large number. For more information, please contact us. We appreciate it. And until next time, thanks for listening.
Turnkey Cybersecurity and Privacy Solutions offers the complete cybersecurity program for small to medium-sized businesses. They include everything needed to secure your business and meet compliance requirements. Visit our website at turnkeycybersecurityandprivacysolutions.com to learn more.